Good evening. School districts are in crisis. The Lakota district will vote tonight to cut $10 million from its budget. And for many districts, asking taxpayers for more money is inevitable. 9 News reporter Bryce Onslinger is here now with a look at why 3 tri-state school districts say they might not be able to stay open without more money from you. Bryce?
Clyde and Carol, more cuts are on the way for local schools, but the reason districts need more money from taxpayers is confusing, even to administrators.
The whole funding problem is insane.
That's Brett Griffith, treasurer and CFO for the Loveland School District. Loveland passed a levy in the last election with 68% of voters in favor of the measure. But even in a district that just passed a levy, the idea of asking more and more from taxpayers is troubling.
At some point, residents are going to say, you know what, we love the schools, we support the schools, we just can't pay for it anymore.
That's what happened in Mason. They failed in trying to pass a levy for the first time in 40 years in November. Loveland used to get $5,000 per student in state funding. That's been cut in half. Griffith says the state is asking districts to be the bad guy.
You know, they don't want to pass, they don't want to increase your taxes. I mean, that's just, they fight it all the time. But they have no problem with us asking for it.
The Princeton School District hasn't had a levy on the ballot in over a decade. That could change because of legislation passed in 2004. The state is phasing out what's called tangible personal property tax. It's a tax on the inventory of businesses.
Historically, Princeton has benefited from a very large tangible personal property tax base.
That's because Princeton has the benefit of having corporations like GE and Ford in its district. Those companies, along with other businesses, used to bring in $24 million in tax money to the district each year. That's down to $18 million a year from TPP. Princeton loses over $1 million in tangible personal property tax funding every year, and by 2025, it could all be gone.
But ultimately, to suffer that type of a loss would be devastating to our students.
Princeton and other districts affected by the TPP tax have gone as far as to hire lobbyists to try and convince the state to keep those tax dollars coming to local schools. But what about schools without the benefit of big industry? Batavia gets 60% of its funding from the state.
School funding itself is difficult to explain.
Jill Grubb is the superintendent at Batavia. Her district failed to pass a levy in November. That forced Batavia to make $1.5 million in cuts for next year. That includes cutting 16.5 positions. Grubb says one of her district's biggest problems is delinquent taxes. The district lost out on $700,000 last year because people didn't pay.
If the delinquent taxes were paid, that would certainly make us look a lot better.
Batavia will have another levy on the ballot in November. If it fails, more cuts could be on the way.
And that's where we'll be looking at such things as high school busing, whether or not we can maintain all-day, everyday kindergarten.
No matter the size or wealth in a district, the financial climate of local schools is changing, and district administrators are becoming more and more frustrated.
And our residents now have to pick up 3.5 more mills just to cover what the state stopped funding us. So it's not fair. It's not fair.
And if the current state funding pattern holds, you can expect to see more and more schools asking for your tax dollars in November. Clyde?